Hey everybody, this is Jeff here for CS161B. Today we're going to walk through how to read data from a file and how to write data to a file. And we're going to do this in the Linux environment. So per my last kind of instruction and last video and the other Linux resources that you've hopefully started to go through, you should be at a point where you can kind of do what I'm doing here. Okay, and so let's begin here. I have this folder CS161B where I have created a file called fileio.cpp. It doesn't have much yet, it doesn't have anything in it yet, right? But we're going to walk through it here. And I have the textbook here that we can reference here if needed. The way that we read file data and write file data is not much different than how we read and write normally. So whenever I do this, cout stands for console out. And as defined in these these libraries here, that's what cout does. It'll print to the screen. And the same thing if we're going cin, it's coming from the keyboard or the touch or the pen or the voice or whatever. But this is, the C stands for console in this case. We're going to change and use something other than cout and cin in this case to do file input and output. Okay, so we're going to do that by creating a input file stream variable called infile, and then I'm going to run the open command on it, and I'm going to give it a name of sample.txt. Same kind of stuff that's happening down here. I use the convention infile. The textbook uses in capital F, capital S. It's the same, it's whatever variable, right? That's what I'm calling it. Okay. Okay. So if I save, I just type :W to save. I'm going to keep the editor open, and I'm going to use a second window down here, and I'm going to go ahead and compile this like that. And I got an error message because I missed a very important thing. I need to include the file stream library. Okay, because it tried to find ifstream from the standard. Okay, so that's, you can see that's here in the sample code as well. Okay, I can use my exclamation mark here in Linux. The exclamation mark tends to find the most recent command that started with a G. I can also use the up arrow, either way. Okay, if I want to run this command works. Okay, however, if I look, I don't have a file called sample.txt. Okay, so what's missing here is I need to do an error check. Check if the file exists. And the way we do that is we use the isOpen command, and that's a Boolean. And if it returns false, then that's why we have the exclamation mark in front of it. So basically, if the in file is not open, can't open or find the sample file, and we have to quit our program. Okay, so now we can rerun the compilation, rerun the command, and you can see I get my error message. Now I have my sample file in another folder, so we're just going to bring it over into the current directory. Let's take a look at what that looks like. it is just 27 lines of code, or not code, sorry, of numbers, random numbers between 1 and 100. Actually, not very the lowest number, or 1 and 1,000 rather. Okay, so now when we run our program runs. Still hasn't done anything because all we did is make sure the file's open. So now let's start to process the data. I'm going to declare a couple variables. Value will be the value that we read on each line, and total we'll use to sum up the total. Let's go ahead and just read the first 5. So here's our line. That's our magic line here. So instead of saying cn to value, I say infile to value. And we can confirm that we found the value. And we can add to it. And we can print our total. And then, really important, get in the habit of closing the file. Infile.close. This line here is good hygiene. Of course, if your program fails, the input infile close won't happen. C++ is pretty good about closing files, but it is good habits to get into. Okay, so let's recompile and rerun, and you can see, let's confirm that we got the right values. The command head prints out the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 lines of the file, and you can see looks good. I'm not going to check the math. I know it worked, right? Okay, so that's good here. The problem here to make this program complete is I need to know how many lines of data are in my file. And I don't want to do that and hard code that number in here, right? Instead, I want to use a while loop, and I want to run until I get to the end of file. Okay, but first I want to introduce, let's see, I want to, yeah. So instead of this for loop, let's go ahead, create a count variable, and now instead of the for loop, I'm gonna first bring in the first value, and then I'm gonna say while infile is not failing, I found my value, print my value, add to my value, increment my count, and then read the next one. And then we're going to say we found count values. And let's see if this works. Compile, run. Okay, doesn't like that. Did I forget to increase? Yeah, So if you look what happened here, I forgot to initialize my value of count. Right here, right? So let's do that. That's why it gave me some nonsense number here. My total looks correct though, right? Save, compile, run. There we go, 26 values. Let's see if I got to the end properly. So if I use tail, I can use tail, and it shows me my last numbers, 7801, 39, 68, 15, 42. Okay, so this looks like this is working well. Now, if I go in here and I put a non-numeric value in the middle here, let's see what happens. You can see that it found there, and and then it aborted here. So what we have to do is in my code, right here, if I haven't hit the end of the file, then I can print a near message. Failure before end of file. Okay, let's see if that worked. So you can see there it says error failure before end of the value. It found the 9 values. It summed up to there. So we can get rid of that ABC. We can run again and we're good. Okay, so what did we learn here? We learned how to iterate through the file. We learned how to some basic error check-in and checking for the end of file. Right, first we open it here. First we open it here. We check and make sure the open worked. We read the first value. That's going to toggle this in file fail flag, right? Good or bad, right? And if I haven't failed, I'm going to print that I found the value. I'm going to add to it. I'm going to increment my count and do it again. As soon as I find a failed value, then I come down here. And if I haven't hit my end of file, I'm going to print an error message that said, hey, I failed before I hit my end of file, and print my stuff and close my file. I want to show you one more thing related to this example. If I bring up my text file and I go to the end, by the way, capital H takes you to the beginning, capital G takes you to the end. If you look, I have a blank line at the end of my file. Okay, this blank line turns out to not be a problem with this code because you might remember whenever we use CN, CN would ignore any spaces before the value it was trying to read. So this blank space right here gets ignored. If you're reading the data in different ways, you may find that this creates a problem for you. And it's one of the more common bugs that at least I code. Because when I'm copying data from Windows especially into Linux, it'll sometimes insert that extra blank line at the end. Okay, so there's my file. I have my code here. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to show you how to do some outputting here. But before we do that, we're going to read in, what we're going to do, let's see, how do I want to do this? I didn't write this ahead of time, so I'm thinking out loud here. I think what we're going to do is we're just going to write this information into a file, and that'll just demonstrate how to do that, right? So we're going to do that the same way we do input. And in fact, I should be able to. Some examples here as we go through, showing you some of the error conditions you can check. File output is the next section, and you can see here it's basically the same thing. So here is what we're going to do. We're going to close our input file. Now we're going to create our output stream. And we're going to open a file for result.txt. We're going to do the same thing. It's more common for you to get errors here when you're trying to write to files because you might not have permission. You might be trying to overwrite something it doesn't let you overwrite. And so it's a good habit here for us to get into doing these checks. And then for these two couts, we're just going to change it to out file. And then we are going to close it and be done. Okay, let's see if that works. All right. I forgot the empty parameters. Okay, so in this case, I didn't see my results here, right? In fact, let me comment. Let's comment that out for now. And you can see my output file now has my data in there. So that is basically it on handling basic input and output. There is in the material here, it gives you some examples of using functions, and you could pass input and output streams by reference to functions. So you can imagine having a function that prints out a bunch of data. And you could pass it either, the output stream, or you could pass it the console. And you could either print it to the screen or print it to a file, or you can print it to multiple files. So that's a way for you to have some flexibility right there. That's demonstrated in the book. I'm not going to show that. One thing that we could also do here is we were processing this data, reading these in one at a time. We could have done this with an array, right? In fact, let's do this. I think this will, let's go ahead and do this here. We are going to declare data1, and we're going to declare data2. We're going to declare two data arrays of 100. We're going to read in two sample files now. And we're going to make an equation. We're going to print out equations. Okay, so in order to do that, I am going to, I'll go ahead and demonstrate the function, I think. So let's see if I can find that right here. Sometimes you can tell when I've written my stuff ahead of time, and other times when I'm kind of winging it, if you will. So, yeah, that should work. So now we're going to create a function, and we'll just call it actually, I'm not going to do this now. I'm afraid this is going to take too long. And there's examples here of having the file, a function to open the file here, and then a function to read the data here. I really want to do it, but I'm afraid this is going to take too long. So what we want to do here is, I keep changing my mind, and I'm going to do it anyway. All right, we're going to go ahead and read data, and we'll do a ifstream in file. And we are going to start with, let's see. I'm going to read that, put that in there. going a little backwards here to demonstrate this. Okay, that's called read data. Okay, so I create my file name, I open it, I check if it's open, I run my program, and I close. In theory, should get the same results. Okay, good. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to copy over from my temp. I have another file called sample2. I'll show you what that looks like. Same kind of thing, bunch of random numbers. So what we're going to now do is we're going to duplicate this code. Nope, I'm going to keep improving this. Let's go ahead and replicate the input here. And I'm looking at the sample code right here. It's not quite the same as what I did in the code below, but it is doing the same thing. So now I can do this. And I can say if open file fails, okay, so I declare my file, I open it, I read it, and I close it. All right, where is my fail? Oh, because I forgot that. And my parameter needs to match. Oh, I see. The example uses in file with a capital F. All right. Function definition is not allowed here. I'm missing a brace, I think. All right, now I'm getting a string issue here. I probably am not declaring my file name properly. Let's look at what the sample code does. The sample code has the file name declared as a character. And I'm just passing it in exactly here. Okay, so instead, let's do it this way. Char file1 Do it that way. Okay, so it didn't work. Okay, so it didn't work. I tried to change too many things at once. Let's see if we can figure this out. I may want to, I'm going to pause here. Pause here and I'll debug this here for a moment. All right, that was a brain fart. Of course it's working. You can see it's printing out the data. But the problem is I'm not creating, I'm not doing any of the math and I'm not printing the results. So of course it's not doing anything because I'm changing what this program is doing. Okay, so sorry about that. All right, so my program is working. I'm reading my data in. Okay, what I want to do here is I want to read it in and I want to put it into the array, into an array. So we're going to do an index equals 0. And we're going to data1 index equals value index plus plus. Is it data1? Is that correct? Data, well, no, not data1. It's whatever. Yeah, let's make these global variables, and then I don't have to, pass them as parameters. All right, so the other thing that I need to do is I want to change read data to, to return how many variables, how many values we found. All right. If I lost you here, I'm gonna walk through the changes I just made in a moment. Okay, I made a bunch of changes here, so don't fret. Let me just make sure it's working, and I'll walk us through it here. Okay, so let's walk through what I did here. Okay, so open file. I've moved the code that I was showing you earlier partially into open file. So my open file takes an input stream and a file name. I'm going to try to open that file, and if it's successful, I return true. Otherwise, I return false. So now, if we look and see, so I run the oh, seriously, don't do that. All right, sorry about that. That was irritating. I had to look up how to turn off that highlighting. Go back to that. Okay, so I set my file name to sample.txt. I pass it to open file. If it returns with a false, I print my error message. Otherwise, I go to read the data, where I pass in the in file again. I do want to pass my array. Because I'm going to demonstrate this with multiple arrays. So I'm going to pass this with data. So my first array, and let's make sure that that works. That should be data 1. Okay, so again, if we go to the top here, I've declared 2 data arrays. And so sample.text I want to read into data 1, sample2.text I want to read into data 2. Okay, so sample.text is what we're going to read. I'm passing data 1 as my parameter. And if that worked, I should get my values down here. What I will do is I will comment out these because we know that's working. Okay, good. So now I've read my data from sample.text into my data 1 array. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to do it again. And I hope I did not lose everybody. But I'll explain it again with the second file. I can run the open command with file 2. And I need to also improve my error message to do that. Yeah. You're watching me finger fumble because I'm used to using a different text editor and I'm using the wrong commands. Okay, so I'm going to open that. Now I can read my data into data 2. And to be safe, I'm going to declare index 1 and index 2. I'm going to delete that. All right, so now when I've gotten to here, I've read 2 data files. Let's confirm that the second data file read. We'll just do that by printing out index 2. Okay. So now what I want to do is I want to write out to my output file I want to write out, and we'll do this for, in this case, both of my files have the same number of data points in them. So we're just going to use one of the index variables. A further improvement here would be to make sure that I use the smaller of the 2 index variables so that I work my way down until I no longer have a pair of data. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to write data 1 index, data 2 index. Oh, sorry, I got my angle guys backwards there. So what did I do here? I'm printing on my file the first value, space plus space, the second value, space equals space, the sum of those two values. So let's see if this works. Ugh. Not index, because that shouldn't be index. That should be hello. Huh. Window locked up for a moment. Data 1 of I. And some of the highlighting colors are a little obnoxious. I'll to fix some of that. All right, I got all sorts of wacky errors here. What happened here? Oh, I still have a bad angle. Been writing C++ for I don't know how long, and I still get my angle brackets backwards from time to time. And I need my end brace for my for loop. And that should be it. All right, let's see what happens. Cat, what did I call it? Results.text. There we go. So we look here. We'll pick one. 744 plus 8978 equals 9722. That looks good. All right. That was a little messy. That second part was my ad hoc, unplanned, let's make this program a little bit more complicated, right? So as long as you feel like you saw how I was reading the data in from one text file, and then I was printing the count and the sum to the second text file, that's what my intention was at the start of the video. Okay, then I got, okay, well, here's some cool stuff here, and we modified my program to kind of do some of that kind of stuff. So if you got stuck, fine, no problem. Maybe you've come back and tried it again. And if it's confusing, you can stop at that earlier point in the video and then go do some of these examples and then perhaps come back. All right, so now you're, good demo here of writing some C++ inside on the Linux server here. If I were to turn this into D to L, I would use FileZilla to pull the file out, right? If there was any sample data that I wanted to submit as well, I'd use the script command as shown in the kind of the Linux reference. And that's it for this lesson. Let me know if you have any comments or feedback.